Hey friends, welcome back to Jason Unleashed. Hi, happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday today, right? I know it's Tuesday because I looked at my calendar to make sure. As I said, the days are all blurring. Great show for you guys today. Danny Franzese is on the show today, and the nostalgia is real. Of course, we know him from Mean Girls back in the day, but this guy is way more than that. Let's bring him in. So excited to have him here. Super cool guy. I had the chance to just hang out with him many times. He's an LGBTQ plus activist. He's a comedian. He's a businessman. He is just so many things. I'm waiting for him to connect. I see him waiting for what's up, Danny. But yeah, he's on the show today. Hope you guys are doing well. Leave your comments below. You guys can wave. Also, all these videos are now going on YouTube. So, boom. And guys, ladies and gentlemen, it's Danny Franzese.
Oh, let me
Danny,
get this right. We're going live in the quarantine.
live from quarantine. You are a new man. Your sans beard. What's going on?
I hate it. I mean, whatever.
You do what you have to do, right?
Yeah, it's my face. I gotta
Right.
get used to it.
You look great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just trying to stay busy.
Aren't we all? Never in my life has that been like a struggle than to try to stay busy when you have all the time in the world to actually do nothing, but you want to find things to do. It's an interesting phenomenon, don't you think?
I loved the excuse of not having time. So that was like my number one go-to. And everyone's like, we totally understand you're on tour. And I'm like, I can't clean my closet. I can't throw that box out. I can't start this project. And
Right.
now I don't like facing myself in the mirror and having to like say like, I'd rather play video games.
Well, you're right. It's like this pandemic, COVID, Rona, has forced us to deal with ourselves. And so some people don't like that. But man, you are so busy. So you said that you're during quarantine, you're cleaning your closet, you're cooking, you're chilling with your fiance. No, you guys are married now, yes?
No. We broke up like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I've
Danny,
been single for like 2.5 years.
why haven't I known this?
I don't know. I mean, I told People Magazine. Do you read People Magazine?
I don't read People magazine. That's the problem.
I mean, it was no regrets. I had a blast in the relationship, but it was such a public relationship. I never really dealt with something like that before. That you can't go tell every single person that ever tweeted about you. So,
Right.
for the people that are in this room, I'm single.
You're single. Well, you are, like I said, more than just what people have come to know you for, and that was from Mean Girls, but you're an activist, you're a comedian, you're a businessman, you're an LGBTQ plus just beacon of light. Let's get into Danny Franzese and everything he has going on. Okay, first of all, this Shit My Italian Mom Says and the whole Italian Mom franchise is brilliant. Brilliant. I went down the rabbit hole all last night and this morning. Simply some of the best content ever. Let's talk about that because that is so authentic to who you are.
Yeah, I make fun of my mom all the time. My whole family uses that same voice from my mom. Like we always say random things. Like my mom, whenever one of us gets something she wants, like I like someone gave me 2 candles. Oh, they're so nice. She'll be like, "Oh, I collect those." And so my whole family, no matter what it is, we'll be like, "I collect those" to try to get them off each other. So we all have like mom like kind of isms that we've been throwing around since we're kids. Even my niece, who's now turning 8, like is in on it. Like she knows to throw the mom voice on. But when the whole like meme came around, the shit girls say, the shit this one says, I was like, I better do the Italian one because I have so many things I've got to get off my chest. And it went viral. It's done really great. We're almost at 6 million views on the first video on YouTube alone. But if you look at like multiple platforms, it's like over 20 million. It really was like a mega hit. And people beg me all the time to do it again. But I kind of felt like if I was to do it again, I would have to take the production value like up a step.
Yeah.
And it required me shaving my beard, obviously. And then, so I just never wanted to do it because I didn't want to take away from how good the old ones were,
Right.
But now that we're in this like quarantine situation and people are still begging me, like I literally get an email every single day for the past 5 years from somebody that asked me to do it again. And I was like, I bet you that Mother's Day this year where people really don't have money and can't get out, it might be fun to do cameos as Italian Mom, or like give them some content to make them laugh and share, because New York really needs something that has like that's like the epicenter of the fandom for Italian Mom,
Right.
because it really should be shit New York Italian Mom say,
Yeah.
because I think it transcends Italian and goes to like Jewish, and it's just New Yorker moms, you know.
Yeah.
And so I wish that I had a chance to do it, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it now, because when I go, I'm not going out on a red carpet, I'm not auditioning, I'm not doing anything without my beard right now. So it's like I'm home. I just have to suffer looking at, you know, my little double chin in the mirror by myself.
You look, Dan, stop. You look fine. But you make a great point about, you know, levity. Right now, what the world needs is to laugh and levity. And why not break it out? Look, they're bringing back Friends, I think, for a one-off. You could bring back Shit My Italian Mom Says for a one-off, too. I mean, the response was huge. And if the fans want it, give the fans what they want, Danny. Come on. You know the drill.
Well, you know, with Quibi and all this other stuff that's happening now, people are getting used to, like, enjoying small little bites of story. And so I think I can do something like that rather than, you know, try to come up with the production value that I had in that one every time, a different outfit, a different location, you know, sound, equipment, all that stuff. Now it could just be me on my cell phone, and I could still do the funny.
Well, like I said, the fans are insatiable. And, you know, you have had this amazing journey as a talent. First of all, you're so talented. You wear so many different hats.
Oh, stop.
Some more. Do it some more. I mean, I've been in the same space with you many times. You're a fan of Drag Race. By the way, you were incredible on last Friday's episode.
How fun was that?
It was amazing. How was it for you?
Honestly, it was like the Make-A-Fish Foundation. I was like so excited. It was literally like a dream scenario. Like me and Jonathan Bennett were geeking out the whole time. Like we turned to each other like, I cannot believe we did this. Like we got here, you know? And doing anything gay with Jonathan is always so special because we were both closeted together, you know? And we both felt that prison, you know, of being on our first studio film and not being able to like be ourselves. So we always could like have like, there's paragraphs of unsaid stuff when we look at each other sometimes, you know? And this was one of those moments where it was just like, oh my God, we're on our favorite show and we're so gay, we're sparkling, we're glittering, girl. It was like really fun.
You mentioned that you and Jonathan were on, you guys are both closeted. Of course, we know you guys are both in Mean Girls, get iconic, right? You had talked to Build about what that experience meant for you and how playing Damien was freeing for you in a sense. Let's talk about just your whole journey of coming out and being the LGBTQ plus superstar and just supporter that you are. Along the way, what have been some of the moments that have been so pivotal for you that have really stuck out for you for you to arrive at who Danny Franzese is now?
I think the biggest thing, truly, and it may sound cheesy, but like the absolute biggest thing that happened to me is my fans. Like honestly, the letters that I've gotten and like the impact that my art had on people's lives, and then the ability with social media for them to share that with me. I've been moved to tears. I mean, I've been humbled and moved to tears so many times by the sheer amount of people who felt like Damien allowed them to explain to their high school friends who they were, and for their high school friends to kind of be excited about who they were. And also like, you know, Southern girls whose moms like weren't gay affirming, and then they're like, oh, he's just like a Damien mama. He could come to dinner, you know, like he could stay over. And like moms like found a person that they could go, oh, that's not threatening.
Right.
You know, and I just think it was unexpected, but it became such a beacon of hope for so many queer people, that character, and his ability to just be around and do whatever. So I feel like that humbled me and that changed me in a lot of ways, because I never had something like that I could really look up to. I mean, you know, we had gay people, but not that much, you know, and then to try to find a big gay person, that was like a whole nother thing. You know, and nobody was really, even like people who were like obvious, like Rip Taylor and Paul Lind and Charles Nelson Riley were never like, I'm gay, you guys. The LGBT community, if you're here, I need you. It wasn't that time.
Right.
You know, so it was just like they were gay in their performance, but they just didn't say it. So I never heard it.
Right.
Imagine me thinking Paul Lind is straight, you know, like he's just sitting on like the actual match game and he's like, well, you know, the last time I've been around a sausage, and like I'm like, oh, that's funny, but what does he mean? You know, like you know, like that kind of. So I didn't really have a lot to look up to in that regard, you know. In music, there were people, you know, there was some people like maybe George Michael and Boy George and stuff, but that was also far away from what I was. So
Right.
for me, I feel like it taught me about how important inclusion and diversity is, and how much I could be a part of that just by having the audacity to work, and
Yeah.
having the audacity to like take my shirt off in something, or, you know, push it a little step further. So that was really impactful for me. And then in addition to that, I think working on Looking, where I played HIV positive, and I got to learn so much about sexual health in our community and how important that is, and how important the relationship between telling a story is, and how the culture actually shifts. I had some political aspirations, but I think those have all washed away since I've been lobbying Capitol Hill and stuff, because I feel like as a performer, we have more of an ability to move the needle, because we can tell the story, and we can make, you know, you can tell somebody your story, and which is an incredible thing to do. And I urge anyone that wants to make any change to go to Washington. You can just sign up and talk to your representative and tell them your personal story, because they care about their constituents, and that's the thing that actually moves the needle, is them hearing those stories. But I could tell a story of my character on television or in a movie or in a play, and that could make somebody feel like they know someone, you know, who is dealing with all the same issues as the character. So as storytellers, we're able to like make people be like, I don't know anyone in my life that's affected by this, but now I feel for someone because I went on this journey with you from beginning, middle to end in the story.
Right.
So
Right.
those are the things that have like changed me and affected me the most. They've sort of like shift and guide the kind of choices that I make in my career. I mean, you know, I've always been like, let's do everything, you know, but I'm a little more selective these days, and I'm also trying to find things that sort of tell a great story. I mean, I also love really goofy comedy, and I found that like how much therapy is in that. Italian Mom is based on my mom, yes, but also my grandmother, my Aunt Lisa, my cousin baby Diane, you know, my friend Melissa's mom, Antoinette, all these people who, like, all these women in my life who I grew up around. I grew up on this block in Brooklyn that I had, my grandfather had 13 brothers. All of them moved on the same block.
Wow.
So when I was born, I like had all these family members around me all the time. And when I would learn the ABCs, I'd go to everybody's coffee table, you know, like, so that's how I became a performer. I was entertaining the kind of ladies I'm making fun of right now, like while they were playing cards.
Right.
And all the husbands were at work. I was the one that was under the table while they were all like playing cards or painting ceramics or whatever they did, you know? So it's like, I know that these mannerisms and these things are coming directly from this tribe of women who held up these families. And a lot of them are gone, you know? It's a different generation, my grandmother's generation. You know, a lot of them have passed already. I mean, I have one of my grandmas, thank God it was her birthday this week, 89 years old. So you can see the age bracket, right? But all those ladies, we miss them. So a lot of people have sent me really heartfelt, like crying, sad messages of just like, thank you for letting me spend another 5 minutes with my mom. Like, I felt like she was yelling at me when I watched your video. And I mean, anybody can just go and read the comments on the YouTube video and see what I'm talking about. There's some really incredible, heartfelt messages there of people who feel like they got to spend more time with a loved one because of that video. And if anything drives me to want to do that more, it's that. I feel so guilty not just dedicating my life to this character because of how much it brings people, how much I would miss my mom if I lost her, you know, and I lost a lot of those ladies I mentioned, and how much I miss them, and how funny it is to think of how hard my grandmama would laugh if she saw me making fun of her. You know?
Yeah. Well, Danny, it leans on your authenticity. You know, you mentioned that the people in the comments related, and what you did in that content resonated because you were so authentic. I think that's what people want, and that's what we need. You talk about family. So if you're so effusive when you talk about your family. You came out later in life, yes?
Yeah, my 20s.
In your 20s.
Well, my 20s to like myself and my family, and everybody else only like in 2011.
Yeah.
2014.
Wow. So when you came out, you obviously you come from a big Italian family. Family's very important in that culture. The support you received from your family, how did that help you move forward in becoming a part of the LGBTQ plus community? Because a lot of us aren't as fortunate to have a supportive family, or we don't have the same stories of, oh, I mean, everyone was so accepting. As we know, there's people who
I
are
don't
bad.
know, like, that I really thought my family was gay affirming at first. I mean, I know we had gay cousins and stuff that everybody loved and nobody cared, but when it comes to like your kin, your like, tight knit thing, like how they would feel, I wasn't sure. And I put myself into conversion therapy, which I tell this story on my podcast, Yes Jesus, if anyone wants to hear. But
Oh, we're gonna get to that.
we're gonna get to that. But I put myself into conversion therapy, and I told my mom that the feelings that I would have were her fault because that's what they told me to say. So my mom, who is like literally the most affirming and accepting person in my life at this point, who I felt like I could do no wrong in front of, was the first person I alienated when I came out. So it was very difficult for me. I was alone for 2 months.
Danny, hold on. You mentioned they. So you're very open about being Christian. You have strong faith. So when you went to conversion therapy, was it based in religion? Who was there?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I it's such a longer story, but I went to my grandmother for help. If you want to hear the whole story, there is it ends with me getting engaged, so it's a little bit updated now. You have the updated. But if you want to hear the whole story of how I went to conversion therapy, I did a podcast called Risk. So if anyone's listening and they want to hear the whole thing, that's where all the juice in the tea is. Okay. But basically, I asked my grandma for help, and she was like, "Let me ask the pastor," and he gave her a card. It was that simple. And I was like, anything, give it to me. And I went, and it was conversion therapy. And nobody knew, I don't think, down the chain that that's what it was. We weren't calling it then. This is like 1998. I was only like 21. So it's like, or something like that around that time. And so maybe 20. And I was in there, and it was Christian. And the guy himself was an ex-gay. And I just thought he was gay, which I was fine with. I was doing musical theater. I had so many gay friends. I love gay people before I was one, but I didn't. And before I even admitted it, I didn't have a problem with anyone else being gay. I wasn't judgmental. I just was afraid of my own convictions in Christ that I was maybe go to hell or something. So I was trying to find a loophole, basically. And it led me back to the butthole,
Stop. Come on.
No, but the guy was like telling me, he was like, we were talking and everything else, and he made me come out to my mom, and I came back to him, and I didn't know what to do, and he was like, I used to be gay, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, used to be gay. I was like, you can't not be gay. He was telling me, he's like, you're not gay, and God, that felt so good. It was like getting a diagnosis. That's all I wanted, He was like, basically by him telling me I wasn't gay, I felt like I could fix what was going on in my head, whether it be by like pill or literature or whatever. And basically, he explained to me, he's like, I used to be gay. And I'm like, this is weird. You can't and then finally he was just like, what are you afraid of? He started screaming at me because I think he was seeing things in himself that I was pushing on him. And I was like, I'm afraid of going to hell. He's like, you're not going to go to hell. He's like, you could be having sex and the second coming of Christ could happen. And as long as you believe in God, then you're going to go to heaven. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I gotta go. And then I lost my virginity that night. So,
How was it? Was it biblical?
I mean, it was great.
Did heaven and earth move?
Not my best, but I definitely enjoyed it enough to try it again and again and again and again and again and again in infinity. So that was basically the journey there, which is why we'll get to my podcast, which is why my podcast, my family eventually came around. My mom is like a huge LGBTQ advocate. She's been to so many prides with me and ridden on floats in San Francisco Pride and DC Capitol Pride. And she is, my mom had a breakthrough. She had a viral video on, God, what was it called? It was like live. Periscope, right?
Remember Periscope?
You remember Periscope? Okay.
It was a thing for a moment.
Even Periscope ain't even having a moment right now during Corona. Periscope's like, doesn't anyone remember me? Okay. So my mom was on Periscope. She was upset because a very close friend of hers, when marriage equality was passed, had said, it's the end of the world now, like this and that. And my mom was like crying, and she was just like, how could somebody feel this way? Like, she was like, Danny, I'm gay, mom. And I was like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And she was like, I'm a gay mom. And I was like, are you trying to tell me something? She's like, no, I'm for the gays. I'm like, I know, mom. You're like in my house with my boyfriend and at the time. And I was like, and we do like pride parade. She goes, no, She goes, if you don't have a mom and you're gay, I'm your mom. And I was like, Mom? And it was like the burn book. I was like, put it in your book.
Right.
And
Danny,
I gave her,
she's like,
and I gave her a Periscope to go off, and I just like laid on her while she told the world how she felt. And now she has people come visit her at DragCon. She has kids that she talks to regular that I don't even know. You know, someone came up to me at DragCon a few years ago and was like, "Give this to Denise," and it was like a present. And I was like, "Who's it from?" And he was like, "She'll know." I was like, "Okay." And my mom was like, "Oh, I know who that's from." Like, oh, you know, and it was like this amazing heartfelt letter with glitter and like. I mean, people just love her for that, you know, so I'm very lucky there. And my dad, he came around too. My dad's a lounge singer, and he had sang at a few gay weddings. And he was like, they're all right people. I don't know. I don't have a problem. You know what I mean? Just be careful. Protect yourself. I don't want to know about the sex stuff. But go ahead. And I was like, Dad, I don't want to know about you having sex either. He was like, yeah, I guess not. And we, like, it was, like, kind of that easy. At the end, and after all these years of, like, trying to figure out how to do it, it kind of just happened, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, and I use comedy to diffuse everything, you know? My dad doesn't like to talk about it that much, but he's like, where you guys want to go? You want to go for sausage? And I'm like, you know how much I love sausage? I'm always like, my brother and sister will blush. I don't shy away from it at all anymore, because my whole attitude is, like, if you don't accept it and you don't, like, embrace it, then fuck you, basically. Like,
well, you're
so
right. You were right. You were right with that. Oh, but you said your mom was like a gay mom. I thought Mean Girls pun. I'm a cool mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought she was gonna like come out as a late in life lesbian or something. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I want to get this clear. She's like, no, but I love the gays.
I'm glad that you have that experience. And like you said, it just happened. People come around eventually. Well, I was watching some of your stand up, and when you talk about your dad, you did a set where while getting married, and you're like, yeah, I'm happy. And then 5 seconds later, your dad's like, who's gonna pay for this? You know, it's complete Italian dad. Complete Italian dad. Yes, Jesus is the podcast. Yes, right?
Yeah, and the punchline to that was, I don't know, maybe Red Bull. I don't know. So I'm famous. Yeah.
You should be working. Yes, Jesus. Podcast, as I said, you are a man of many hats. Let's talk about this podcast, because you are a fantastic host. Last summer, you joined me at the Young Church for our LGBTQ plus special, and I was just blown away about how nuanced and just present you are. And you touched on just a little bit earlier. You're politically inclined. You're aware of what's happening.
I appreciate you saying that. Keep climbing and become like a mogul, so you can hire me.
We'll have our own podcast. Yes, Jesus, featuring Swirl. Interracial. Make it happen. But you have this podcast where you're talking about things. Let the people know.
Well, so I was a guest on the very popular podcast called Guys We Fucked, which these incredible hosts are two girls who you interviewed all these men that they had been with, and then it's gone on to become a really big sex positive show. They've had guests like Amber Rose and all these other people talking about sex positivity, and people listen to it a lot. They have a New York Times best-selling book. Anyway, they were having me on it, and I was like kind of excited about talking about like sex, because I think that anytime a bigger guy is sexualized, again, it's like an area where people don't put us all the time. So it's like something that I think is nice for audiences to see. But we talked very little bit about that and went on to talking about me being a queer Christian. It was interesting. They had found that out. I've written a couple articles and stuff. I always thought when I came out of the closet that would be my platform, that I would like come out as a queer Christian. And, I always used to have like a sort of a deal with God. I'm like, just let me stay in the closet. Let me get this one part. And as soon as I get that role that I'm famous for that isn't gay, like I was like, then I'll come out as gay, and then I'll bring all these people, to the table to tell them about how God loves them. And that was like my whole agenda until I came out, my platform ended up being like the gay glass ceiling in Hollywood, how actors can't, because that was what was going on at the time. And that was the conversation we were having, And so I circled back immediately, and when I wrote for Attitude Magazine. I wrote an article about being a queer Christian. I worked for Bear World Magazine. I wrote an article about it there. I think I've written articles in a couple places. I don't really remember where else, but a few other places had commissioned me to do some stuff like that. And then I was on this. I have a friend, Azariah Southworth, who's now my co-host. And Azariah was a host on TBN which is the Trinity Broadcasting Network, which some of us have either watched or scrolled past. And he was the host of Remix. Yeah. He was the host of Remix, which was like their TRL. And Azariah, as I know him, even as a gay, is a super fan of Christian music. Like, he's like, do you remember the third track on the this? And I'm like, dude, no, I don't, you know? Like, he knows like everything about Christian music. And so he was the perfect person to be the Carson Daly, basically, of the TBN network. And then when they found out he was gay when he came out, they just stripped him of his job. He just got kicked out of media. Like, after years of like, you know, having a calling for it, you know, God giving him all these like inspirations and opportunities, and him going all the way to TBN. A little kid who's like such a big fan. Here he is on the network, you know, like making his very religious parents proud, and then he loses his whole entire site.
Right.
So him and I have commiserated about that and talked about that kind of stuff. You know, we've had moments where we've either prayed together or have like gotten stoned and like really got philosophical and got into some really good stuff. And I was like, man, we should really make a podcast. So we decided that's what we're going to do. We're going to make a podcast. Azariah could like reclaim his pride and get back into media because he's so talented and gifted at it. And we could do it together, and we'll do it. We'll get to it. And it was something that was like in the pipeline on like a dream. But then I did Guys We Fucked, which, by the way, if you should listen to that, anyone listening, you should go listen to that podcast that I was on. And then they started asking me all these questions. And then I was also on Throwing Shade, and I talked about religion there too, because it just came up. And I'm a non-denier. Like, so if it doesn't matter where I am, what I'm doing, my like one big rule about my spirituality is if somebody asks me if I believe or I'm spiritual, I'll never lie. Like, I'll never, just to be cool or whatever, I'll never be like, no, yeah, that's funny. I'll be like, actually, I believe. Like, I have to say it. So they asked me on the podcast, and I kind of went off, girl. I like told them everything, and it was interesting, the amount. I don't think I had ever said it on that kind of a scale before. Saying it in a gay magazine in Europe is like one thing, because I don't know how many people with that mindset are reading it. But saying it on the scale where people are opening up their minds to sex positivity and opening up their minds to like what all these different things, they already have an open mind. So I was already speaking to a bunch of people who were like, oh my God, I didn't know how to quantify it. Like, I have a problem being a Christian on Sunday, but then and the rest of the week hanging out with my gay friends and not making the connection. Thank you, you know. Or I had someone saying that they felt suicidal, but then when they heard this, if they felt like it was God telling them that they're still loved. And I just think that you know, they say the greatest trick the devil ever pulled is letting the world think he doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. I think the greatest trick Christians have pulled is letting gays think that God doesn't exist for them.
Right.
Like it's such a lie to our community. And I'm like, bitch, you thought we just wanted marriage? We want our God back now. So get ready, because we deserve it. Like, this thing that centers so many people across the world, across the globe, is not available to gay people because they just love one another. And right. I don't think that's really the case.
It's not, well, Danny, that's a great point. And it's not the case. And I think that, you know, for at least in our lifetime, when it comes to religion, people weaponize that as well. It's a dagger they love to throw when they find out that you are other in some capacity than what the book has told them is right, or what their upbringing is. You know, like there's luckily here, at least in Los Angeles, we're seeing, I've seen a lot of churches that are all inclusive and welcome in LGBTQ plus and people there's a few, but there's also Baptist churches and stuff disguised as churches like that. There's a difference to me between being like, sure, you can hold hands, gay couple, come in and sit in the pew, and we'll take your money and we'll say hi, and we'll never mention something bad about gay. We won't read that section and we won't discuss it and we won't be affirming, but you can sit here. And them hanging a pride flag out front and saying, guess what? You're welcome here. This is a house for you. Yeah. And I think that's the time that we're at right now, is we're modern enough that we need to cut the bullshit and we need to hold our pastors and stuff accountable. One of the things I say is, like, if I'm talking to a pregnant mom who's gay affirming, and I say to her, what would you do if are you going to raise your child in the church? And they would say yes, right? If they're Christian and gay affirming. And then I say, okay, so you're going to send your child to Sunday school, and then they're going to come and sit with you, you know. So 16 years of your child's life is going to be dedicated to this community, 15 years. And then they get into puberty and stuff, and they're 13 to 16, and they're like, hey, Mom, I'm gay. And then you tell your pastor this, and they don't accept it. What do you do? She goes, well, I'm going to leave the church. Like, my child's more important. Then why would you subject yourself to your child 16 years of being in a non-affirming place?
whether your child's gay or not. Find out if your pastor's affirming now,
Yeah.
before you give all your time, money, and energy to a community that doesn't support what you actually believe in. But people do it out of, out of status. They do it out of courtesy. They do it out of convenience. The church is across the street. Whatever. It's about me. It's not about everybody else. But you have to hold your spiritual leaders responsible for being fully accepting. You can't just expect them to be.
Right.
And so I want to see more pride flags hanging around churches. I want to see more people who are driving by knowing that they're welcome just by looking at the church. It almost reminds me of civil rights. It's like, when all of a sudden we have like equality for equality for black and white people. How does a black person at that time know they're still safe to walk into the diner without, you know what I mean?
Without a cue from the establishment.
Exactly. Just because it's legal doesn't mean that it's truly the heart of the person who's on the establishment. I don't want to eat your frigging donut if your donut is going to hurt. It has been hurting my people for all these years. Yes. So it's like, I want to know who's here for queer people, and I want to encourage our listeners, because I'll tell you, if you're not Christian and you're listening to this and you're just queer, you went through something where you were battling who you really are inside, it's double for a Christian person. And when you do finally come out, you are asked to let go of that other half of you. It's like you either give up gay or God. And it's like you have to either say, I'm going to forget about the gay part of me and practice this, or I'm going to concentrate on the gay me and be fully me, and God doesn't even really exist except at Christmas and when I'm sick.
Right. You should be able to.
Like,
yeah.
It's just an opportunity for people to say you can have it all. Like and to be blunt about it, I could suck a dick and love Christ. The two things don't go together. And nobody talks about it that way. And that's how I really want to, that's how we talk about it on the podcast. I'm sorry. It's like, we live in a modern world. We have to figure out how this fits in for our time. The Bible did not count for the internet. The Bible did not count for how we are. They didn't know, so you have to look at the Bible in like 3 different ways. And this is what's really interesting. We're going at it from a scholarly point of view also, not just emotional. So it's like, you have to look at it for what it meant for the people of that time. You have to look at it, what it means for people of today. You have to look at it for what it means for the future. And ultimately, the Bible is a reflective text. So if I look at this, I will find things in it for me. And one of the things that also was like hugely eye-opening in the beginning of recording this podcast is the word homosexual was added into the Bible in the 40s. Like before that, it said lovers of men, which meant pedophilia. And so they just changed it and targeted us. So it's like, it doesn't even say that in the Bible. And then also, we had people on talking about the queer relationships in the Bible, the relationship between David and Jonathan, which is always looked at as best friends. But in the Bible, David says that Jonathan's love was greater than that of a woman in Samuel. And then the covenant of Ruth and Naomi, people go, oh, they weren't together. That was her mother-in-law. Yeah, but so what? Like, her husband died and then they got together. Like, here's this is insane. And this is almost like where we get into like a catfish or like the Leah Remini Scientology, right? When it comes to the Bible and queer people, is that there's no representative of a wedding in the Bible. There is a wedding that happens during the Fishers of Men when Jesus breaks up the fish and the bread for everyone. But the 2 covenants between 2 people that everyone uses for heterosexual weddings since like the beginning are 2 covenants between 2 men and 2 women. Like, so it's like, oh my God, all this time, all these straight people have been getting married to Jesus's, both of them, David was a cousin of Jesus, and so was Naomi or Ruth. So it's like Jesus is 2 gay cousins.
It's a reality show in the Bible.
And here's so I couldn't believe that the Bible that made me seek out conversion therapy is the same Bible that now I'm reading a queer love story in. Yeah.
It's like,
go back.
It's like those Disney Danny, it's like those Disney movies where they have like penises and drawn in.
It is. If anybody is even curious about what I'm saying, do yourself the favor of going to 1 Samuel in the Bible and reading the story of David and Jonathan. I read through it like with an apple, like I was the boy in Never Ending Story. I was like, it's raining outside. I locked my door. Like, I was on a cruise. I was on a cruise across Europe. Like, I took my mom on a 14-day riverboat cruise through Europe for Christmas, and I was in my room reading the Bible. Like, what? Like, I mean, But the story is so compelling, the love between David and Jonathan. You know, David is David and Goliath fame, and he was this like hot twink that showed up to Saul, like, and then all of a sudden it says at first sight Jonathan was in love with David. Yeah, he was hot.
He was the hot twink. He was the hot twink on the Santa Monica Boulevard of Jerusalem or Galilee or wherever they were at.
But what's so amazing is that it goes on to just talk about like things that Saul, some other indicators, as Saul goes, finally, I figured out a way how you could be my son-in-law, and then gets him married to his daughter. So what do you mean finally? Like, he hated him. He tried to kill him with a javelin twice. He just was sick of him canoodling with Jonathan. So he was like, he figured out